This. Really? This is what you want me to be?
Just read it, please.
Okay. Hello, you've caught me introducing the video. Not a very original intro, but it is a video intro, and that's what viewers expect to see when they start watching something on YouTube. It's also consistent with the way I've been introducing these videos for over 10 years, and that's comforting for us all, isn't it? Things staying the same. No alarms, no surprises, no panic, just soft, familiar consistency. That's me. Exciting, I know. As convenient as it is to have everything in our lives running like well-oiled clockwork, there is always a part of us that enjoys being thrown off by something unexpected, being woken up by breakfast in bed, or that feeling when you think it's a Wednesday, but actually it's a Saturday. Oh my god, that's so good. And in video game terms, the things that surprise me the most are old games we absolutely adore getting a totally unexpected sequel years after the original came out. One thing you will expect, however, is the number of examples I've thought of. Surprise, it's 7. So, here are 7 video game sequels we never saw coming. The first sequel we never expected is Hollow Knight Silksong. It's basically the reason we wrote this list, but it also stands out amongst all the other entries because it's the only one where a sequel was actually expected, at least at first. Silksong was originally announced just 2 years after the original Hollow Knight released, and was initially going to be a DLC before being spun into a standalone game. All of which makes sense. Hollow Knight basically revitalized an entire genre. But not long after the release, the initial flood of info slowed to a stream, then to a trickle, and by 2023, it was more like those annoying intermittent drips that come out your shower when you haven't turned it off properly. The official word was always that Silksong was still in development and that further updates would be coming soon. Naturally, the internet responded in a calm and reasonable manner. Silksong cancelled? Silksong new details when? Will trade firstborn child for Silksong news? With the hype machine reaching overdrive, Silksong when essentially became a meme. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, there was a full-on "the game is coming" announcement, and not long after that, a release date that was an actual confirmed date made of actual numbers, and not suggestions made of words. And then, it was out, and everything was right again in the world. Silksong when? Silksong right now. In fact, video stop, Silksong play. Away you go. Sequel we never expected number 2 is Helldivers 2, and boy what a sequel it was, and still is for that matter. For those of you who haven't played the original, which is probably a fair chunk of the people playing the sequel, Helldivers was a top-down co-op shooter released on PS4 that garnered a cult following due to it being, well, really good. Everyone agreed it was an enjoyable couch co-op romp, but in terms of cultural impact, it didn't set the world on fire. And when Helldivers 2 was announced, now a third-person shooter, the world remained flame-free. But upon its release in 2024, Helldivers 2 absolutely torched the place. Everyone that played it loved it and invited their friends to help spread democracy across Super Earth. So much so, in fact, that it was difficult to actually get into a game in the first few days. Such was the queue of people waiting feverishly to shoot space bugs. At one point, it had nearly 460,000 concurrent players, which is the equivalent of the population of Brunei. Did you Google population league table and just pick the one that was nearest 460,000?
I did, yeah.
So, when we say we didn't expect Helldivers 2, what we actually mean is we didn't expect it to be so flippin' huge. Even now, the game continues to be massive, with regular updates and new Warbond goodies to unlock, and new planets with fresh species of intergalactic troublemakers to kill. And I'm sure it will remain that way for as long as those damn space bugs refuse to die. Sweet liberty for me, but not for thee. The next sequel we never saw coming is Shenmue 3, a game that basically no one expected, despite it probably being the most wanted game ever back when people finished Shenmue 2. Fans desperate for the conclusion of Ryo's story would have to wait a long time to hear any real news, but after 11 years, the first significant update came to light.
The problem was, it wasn't exactly promising news for anyone hoping for Shenmue 3.
Shenmue creator Yu Suzuki left Sega in 2011, but then, in 2015, stunned the world at E3 during the PlayStation conference by announcing a crowdfunding campaign to raise the budget for Shenmue 3's development. That Kickstarter, by the way, the fastest and highest funded video game campaign ever at the time, hitting its goal in just 9 hours and more than tripling it by the end.
$6.3 million raised in total. Not too shabby.
And so the Shenmue faithful rejoiced, for they now knew for certain that the prophesied threequel existed. No definitive release date? Bah, I've already waited 13 years, what's another few? And so it came to pass that on the 19th of November 2019, 17 years, 2 months and 13 days after the release of Shenmue 2, Shenmue 3 arrived.
And the Shenmue fans did see this, and they were pleased, and it was good.
Sequel we never expected, number 4 now, and it's another game that came out of nowhere, Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time.
Which is funny because, A, it's about time, because the game is literally about time travel, but also, it's about time because finally,
But it was actually about time, because the last Crash Bandicoot game on PlayStation was Crash Mind Over Mutant in 2008, a year marked by such torrid things as the financial crisis, England failing to qualify for the Euros, and my begrudging acceptance that my hairline was receding.
That's how long we waited for Crash 4. I literally had hair when the last one came out.
After 12 years of waiting, Crash was back with a direct sequel to Crash 3 Warped. We simply couldn't believe it. The legend had returned.
He of blue trousers and unintelligible utterances.
But perhaps the thing we expected least was that Crash 4 felt just as tight as the PS1 originals, while at the same time looking as amazing as the Insane trilogy. Crash 4 is a worthy successor to some of the best platforming games of all time, a surprise every bit as pleasant and unexpected as when you find a £10 note in that coat you haven't worn since last year.
So yeah, thanks past me, and also thanks Toys for Bob for making such a brilliant game.
Do not spend all that money on Dr. Pepper.
You're not my mum.
The 5th sequel no one expected is one that made the world of epic dice-based role-playing more accessible than ever. Baldur's Gate 3 is one of the biggest success stories of 2023 and will no doubt be looked back on as one of the greatest games this decade, maybe of all time.
Not bad when you consider the last game came out 23 years prior.
Certainly long enough ago that we didn't see it coming, but in hindsight it does make perfect sense. Ever since Stranger Things made Dungeons & Dragons cool again, tabletop role-playing games have become increasingly popular, with new channels dedicated to playing D&D popping up all over.
Shout out to Holly Bennett's Natural 6, once an Access host, always an Access host. That is a good heart. I won't hear any slander about that one. It's a bit wonky. I love you, Holly.
So, if you were a game studio and you had a massively successful franchise based on the thing everyone increasingly likes sitting around at the back of your IP cupboard, of course you dig it out again. And praise Ogma, that's what Larian Studios did, because now we have the infinite possibilities of Baldur's Gate 3, the only video game on PS5 where you can somehow fall in love, lick dead spiders, then encourage a boss to off themselves without getting tonal whiplash.
A lovely surprise indeed.
Speaking of surprises, Alan Wake 2 is the 6th sequel we never saw coming. partly because the original game was seemingly a one-and-done cult favourite, but also because Remedy themselves seemed focused on pushing in new creative directions. By the time Bureaucracy via Guns That Talk Simulator Control was released in 2019, Alan Wake and the psychological thrills of Bright Falls seemed relegated to Easter egg status. Despite how much we all wanted it, surely no one actually believed that there would be a sequel.
Little did we know, Remedy was playing the long game.
When Control's DLC plans were announced and the title of the second expansion, AWE, became public knowledge, the speculation began. There was no way that AWE stood for Alan Wake Expansion, right? It obviously meant Altered World Event, because that was the acronym the game used. Anything else was hypothetical nonsense dreamt up out of sheer fantasy. Only it wasn't. And AWE was a dedicated world-expanding addition to the Wakeverse, complete with flashlight mechanics, the Dark Presence, and even Emil Hartman as the final boss. Finally, an actual morsel of Alan Wake for fans to enjoy.
Which was great, but what came after was even better.
When the DLC ended, Langston tells Jesse about another Altered World event that takes place in Bright Falls, but this one is in the future. Cue the Night Springs music, because that's a cliffhanger that can only mean one thing. Alan Wake 2 is real, and it's coming. Of course, no one knew that until it was actually announced at the Game Awards the following year, and even then, people still probably didn't see it coming without a torch.
Like in the game. Torch.
As expected, all lists must come to an end, and the last sequel we didn't see coming was Psychonauts 2. The original Psychonauts is a fantastic PS2 platformer that, as is a running theme in this list, was lost to time, seemingly. Thankfully, it being such a unique entry in a pretty crowded genre helped it stand out in the eyes of many, and that meant it was able to get a second wind of sales and build on its already strong reputation through a remaster in 2011. Even then, it seemed like Psychonauts would always be consigned to the annals of history.
Like the gaming equivalent of that quirky friend from school you lost touch with.
But, like forgotten friendships, cult classic video games can be resurrected through the magic of the internet. Similar to the success story of Shenmue 3, Double Fine ran a crowdfunding campaign that put them in a position to make a sequel complete with designers and voice actors from the 2005 original.
But of course, the story didn't end there.
Tim Schafer's previously unthought of, now hotly anticipated sequel went through a lengthy development process, and when Psychonauts 2 arrived in 2021, none of us could quite believe it was actually here.
One thing we did expect though was that it would be great, and it was pretty darn great.
And that was 7 sequels we never saw coming. If you enjoyed this video, then give it a like and let us know what sequel you never saw coming in the comments. And if you do expect more videos like this, then please subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep up to date with everything PlayStation. That's all for now. We'll see you next week.
Shout out to Holly Bennett's Natural 6, once an Access host, always an Access host. Am I doing the heart symbol right?
No.
No? It's more like
you're eating a sandwich.
More like a sandwich.
Yeah, and also your fingers, like, so you've got your right hand is in line, but then your left one you've got your index finger dropping down, so it's got like a weird little hybrid thing. So they just need to be like more. Yeah, you can do that, I guess.
PlayStation